Hey, this is Matt Hines with DevOps TV for DevOps.com at the DOES 16 conference. I'm joined here now with Charles Betz. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. Charles presented at the show on the topic, the ever-interesting topic of higher education and the DevOps workforce.
Exactly.
So what's the big challenge? What's the big deal right now with this?
Well, we're in a huge transition in terms of digital transformation and digital industries, what their needs are of the workforce. For example, Target Corporation recently let several hundred people go, and they very specifically said it was because of our transition to an agile operating model. And when you dug further in, it was because of Target's move towards product management instead of project management. Now we've got a higher education system that in many programs is still requiring 3 credits of project management. And so the questions start to arise because Agile and DevOps are no longer a fringe thing. They are, in fact, the new primary and best accepted approaches for delivering digital systems, regardless of the size of the organization.
So the skill sets are changing.
The skill sets are changing, the orientation is changing.
Education
Needs
one
to
would
change.
think needs to change as well.
Yes, it does.
So how do we make this happen? Does this get pushed from industry down into education, or where are we seeing pockets of understanding around it? I mean, how's this evolving right now?
Well, what I talked about in my presentation today was how the academic curricula have been defined historically, and there are some significant professional associations, the Association for Information Systems, the IEEE, and the ACM, which have defined reference curricula that in some ways have kind of promoted a sharp segregation between Dev and Ops, and also encouraged people to go into computer science and have very, very technical objectives in their degrees, but no understanding of business concerns like product management. The way we start to change this is through, I think it'll probably take a multi-pronged approach, where we will need to engage with the professional associations and also with advisory boards at the specific institutional level. And I did have a number of people who were on such boards come and approach me after the talk.
So one of the presentations that we had yesterday was related to the fact that within a specific company, they're basically looking at 2 subcategories, right? You had engineers with a specialty in development and engineers in a specialty in operations, working in commingled teams and with some degrees of specialization. But again, how do you address that from an educational standpoint? Do you just start mashing up the curriculum, or it's a pretty interesting turf battle?
Well, Matt, that's a great question. And what my presentation was in part was the actual release of this report that I was a coordinator on for the Minnesota State University system. And in this report, we talk about these very questions of how do we start to move the curricula in the right way? How, do we need more collaboration between the management information systems departments and the engineering departments with their computer scientists? All of these things are addressed in here as recommendations, at least, of things that we might want to start thinking about. It's very preliminary work, of course.
And that's called, again, for folks who are watching, it's a dynamic IT report for Minnesota State.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure maybe if they look you up on LinkedIn, they can find something about that.
Yes, they can. It's free for download, and it's been supported by the Minnesota State system. This is going out to, I think, 37 different institutions in the Minnesota State system across the whole state. Hundreds of computer science, IS, and IT faculty will be receiving this report.
Cool. So let's turn this around. We've been talking a lot about education.
Mm-hmm.
The organizations that are here, practitioners, a lot of them are talking about trying to be reflective of the fact that they've got skill sets in-house and they don't want to push these people out.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, there's a whole new set of requirements that are being created through, again, cross-functional evolution of these positions. Right. What do you see, what's the real sweet spot in terms of folks who are looking to get hired? What's that skill set that you see really lacking out there in the professional workforce?
Well, Y Combinator just posted a blog about some research they did asking the question, who gets hired at Y Combinator incubators, because they actually have kind of a centralized hiring process, is my understanding. And they started running the numbers on the programmers that were actually being brought into the startups. I mean, you put your resume to Y Combinator, and then they try to line you up with one of the startups in their incubator, is I think how it works. And what they found was that the highest demand by far was for programmers who had a product orientation, who cared about things like usability and user experience design, and so on. The programmers who were purely technical, who were really good with, say, algorithms and data structures, there was roughly half the demand for those kinds of programmers. So I think that really having that sense of there is a customer experience or a consumer or a user experience at the end of the day that I need to support through my technical activities. And it's not just a matter of, oh, just give me some requirements and I'll code to the requirements, but don't bother me with what you're trying to do on the business level.
Right, yeah. So my son is 10 years old, and he's, live in Boston, and he's convinced that he wants to go to MIT and become an engineer.
Good
and
for him.
they're always, I keep telling him, better get straight A's and do all your homework.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyhow, next generation engineers are clearly going to have, they're going to have these cross-functional skill sets, right? People are going to be, as the curriculum evolves, so will again, the aim and the outcome of the students who go through this. What do you see in terms of next steps? How's this going to, again, change over time? What are the near term shifts, and then long term?
It's a great question. The near term, you don't require, the curricula doesn't require radical surgery. I want to be very clear about that. There's a lot of things that are covered in core CSI and software engineering with, the fundamental theories of computation. We're not touching that at all. What we're interested in is the contextual courses, the courses like project management, requirements management, software quality assurance. Those courses need a big upgrade, in my view, to be made current with practices like continuous integration, continuous delivery. Teaching software quality assurance and not teaching automated testing and continuous integration in this day and age is just really way behind industry practice. And so I think that there are a number of things like that. Oh, also operations courses. Operations used to be just kind of left to the discretion of the company. It's like, we can't teach operations in school because it's not that interesting, it's not really a thing, and there's too much variation in how companies do it. But actually, with the rise of site reliability engineering, and there's increasing attention to the fact that digital services are delivered as operational services and operating them is non-trivial, and there is the emergence of a consensus about how to do this at scale, and that consensus is grounded in things like human factors research. And I'll just give a big shout out to people like John Allspaw and Tom Limoncelli, who have pioneered whole new areas that really need to be given, I think, a lot more love in the academic curricula.
It's an important part of culture.
It is.
No matter what you do. And interesting to think about that continued cultural evolution here at this year's conference. Charles, great to talk to you. Thanks again for joining us.
Okay, great, Matt.
And again, Matt Hines with DevOps TV for DevOps.com at the Does 16 conference. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.